China's economy has taken yet another blow, with some of the biggest shadow banks in the country defaulting on payments. The way forward looks confusing, but the real question is if there even is a way forward. The answer is a little more complicated than just a yes or no. Let's find out. China's shadow banking industry. Shadow banks are somewhat different from regular banks. They help move money around for big projects like buildings and roads. In China, they're a pretty big deal, handling about 40% of all borrowed money, which is around $3 trillion. It all started in 1983 when China made some changes to its main bank. It encouraged businesses and private investors to put more of their money into special financial products, making the banking industry even bigger. In China, the banks supported by the government don't pay people much for keeping money in the bank. That's why trusts can offer higher interest rates, usually around 6% to 8%. This makes them more attractive to investors. But there are different ways people borrow and lend money in the shadow banking world. Some involve regular banks, but many don't. They have things like wealth management products, WMPs, other trust products, entrusted loans, and moving money around different parts of the financial system. They did that to encourage people to take more loans. For a long time, these trusts were seen as a safe way to invest money. People thought their money was protected and they wouldn't lose it. But now, because of China's economic problems, some trusts are struggling and might lose a lot of money. This puts billions of dollars at risk because the economy is not growing as fast, making people worry that a bigger money crisis might happen soon. Shadow banks and the real estate crisis. In China, when they build houses, they often get money from special banks called shadow banks instead of regular ones. This happened a lot from 2000 to 2010, when many houses were bought and sold. But as time went on, not as many people wanted houses. Eventually, there were too many and not enough buyers. This made it hard for big companies building houses to pay back the money they borrowed. This caused a problem for China's big banking industry because they usually make a lot of money from these kinds of investment. The big player in this is Zhongrong. They take care of lots of money, around $140 billion. Zhongrong's shadow bank, called Zhongrong International Trust Co., is really important. It looks after a big part of the country's trust money, about $90 billion. Last year, Zhongrong put a lot of money into the real estate business, but they didn't make as much money back as they thought they would. This means about 11% of the company's money is stuck in real estate projects, and this causes problems. Jingwei Textile Machinery, a state-owned enterprise, is Zhongrong's largest investor. Last month, Jingwei withdrew its shares from the stock market. They said they were doing it because of significant uncertainties. They did not mention Zhongrong. They didn't have to. An accountant revealed she invested $1.5 million in 2 Zhongrong trust products. Though she knew little about Zhongrong, she felt secure because a state-owned firm was its largest shareholder. It had approval from China's banking regulator. She received a commitment letter promising to cover any investment shortfalls. When her $550,000 investment in one fund matured last month, she didn't receive her principal. This was a 7.6% interest payment after a year. The company offered no reassurance. But if the houses are still there, can the companies not sell and make a profit? Well, not so much. And this is where the Chinese government comes in. The Chinese government's mixed response. Since 2016, China has been working to manage the prices of homes in large cities. They noticed that the cost of homes that were already built kept increasing. At the same time, the price of new homes didn't change much. But when the prices of homes went down, the cost of new homes didn't drop by a large amount. This helped make the situation not as serious as it could have been. It also made it tricky to understand the real condition of the property market. This was because the fluctuation was between the actual prices and the prices that were high because of shadow investments. In many big cities, they used government prices in 2021 instead of market prices. They also made separate contracts with lower prices for tax reasons. The confusion about prices affected people's decisions. Also, China's unemployment rate is reaching over 50%, so not many people can buy homes right now. Even with these changes, the real estate market kept taking loans for big projects, but with more loss. In China, the real estate and shadow banking parts of the economy work hand in hand. This means if there are problems in the areas, it affects other parts of the economy as well. Many regular people in China like to put their money in shadow banking. This is because it gives them better interest rates compared to regular banks. This means that what they earn is higher than from a regular bank. If there are issues with shadow banking, it could affect millions of these regular people, especially how much money they have to spend. This might make people spend less in China, and that can affect many different industries. We can't tell how closely connected Chinese shadow banks are with other countries. We also don't know how much money they've borrowed from them. Issues here mean issues for banks and organizations worldwide. And because this could be really bad for China, they might try different solutions. For example, making struggling companies join with others. It's not like China has not been expecting this sudden decline. It was predictable, and that explains some of China's moves that they've made since the 2010s. In 2020, the group overseeing banking of China, CBIRC, expanded the definition of shadow banking. They included more types of financial products in a report. The report emphasized that shadow banking was quite complicated. It had tricky business setups, not enough information, and wasn't very clear or open. It also had a lot of borrowing, which could be risky. To fix these problems, the report made suggestions. The key one was to keep a close eye on shadow banking to understand the many kinds there were. It also suggested the government make clear rules about what could be offered to the public and what couldn't. The high-value assets could be insured against the instability of shadow banking. China followed some of these suggestions. Back in 2020, the amount of money involved in shadow banking activities in China was about 3 trillion yuan, but now it's less than half of that. And the portion of shadow banking connected to real estate saw the most significant decrease. This means that there's been a notable drop in the money flowing through these non-traditional banking channels. By July 2023, shadow banking had less money compared to regular bank loans. In fact, the money in shadow banking was about 7.7% of the money in regular bank loans. Back in June 2018, it was much higher at 20.1%. This means there was less money in shadow banking compared to regular bank loans in 2023. Economists think the recent situation with Zhongrong will make China be even more careful in watching out for money problems. But while it's important to control shadow banking, China knows that it helps the economy. China has never been against shadow banking. They just didn't want it to come to this point. Still, when people who invested in Zhongrong's trust products asked for help, the Chinese government stepped in. China's banking watchdog, which oversees how banks operate, has created a special team to look closely at a company called Zhongji Enterprise Group. The watchdog group, called the National Financial Regulatory Administration, put together this special team last month. Their job is to figure out how much money Zhongji owes and understand the risks involved. Zhongji is based in Beijing and manages over 1 trillion yuan, which is about $138 billion in different assets. Critics say the safety net for investors led to the banking crisis. People weren't worried about risks. Trust companies took risks in lending, which the Beijing government wants to stop. They think this can lead to financial problems. Looking ahead, Liu Shijin, an advisor who helps the government with finance, thinks that China needs to do more than just big plans to help the economy grow. He believes in making lasting changes that will support people who start their own businesses. Shijin points out that China's way of managing money is different from the United States, so we cannot just follow in their steps. Shijin is part of the People's Bank of China, which is like the money headquarters in China. He spoke at a meeting about how China handles money problems. He warned that if they only rely on big plans, it could cause more problems, and they might miss chances to make important long-term changes. Shijin had some new ideas to help the economy. These ideas involve how things are made and given to people. For example, they want to make sure workers who move from one place to another can get the same services as people who live in cities. They also want to help new industries and the people who start them. He also suggested that China should give more attention to private businesses. These are businesses that regular people start and run. They should be supported and treated fairly in politics. And it looks like the Chinese government is also listening to these suggestions. In September, China's top economic planning group said they'd make a new part of the government to help private businesses. This is because the government wants to make investors feel more sure about things, especially after recent actions that affected businesses in areas like the internet and private tutoring. As things stand, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. They should try out different plans, keeping a close eye and making adjustments as things change. And things aren't all bad for China yet. The country recently saw a sudden increase in retail sales and industrial production. It's good news, but they shouldn't make big predictions based on short-term gains. Only time will tell if China joins the list of countries currently on a permanent downward spiral, or if it still has the same passion that it has used to survive some of the highest tides in its history. Do you think that the Chinese economy can still recover and end the year on a good note? Let us know in the comments. And if you liked this video, please subscribe to our channel for much more global content just like this.